We are in in the mode of setting up various things here, so pardon me if I kind of stammer and stutter for a moment. But welcome everyone to the live broadcast and on Zoom and also on Facebook Live today in the local Chamber of Influencers Facebook group. Glad to have all of you here and uh, on the live and on the replay because I know we have a lot of folks who come and enjoy the replays on our trainings that we have every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And so if you haven't joined us before or you know somebody who hasn't enjoyed it, then invite them to come along. Today's going to be a special experience. We have a very, very talented and enthusiastic uh, young lady from the New York area, and she's going to be talking about how you, as an individual, can gain visibility. Not only gain visibility, but step out front, as a matter of fact. And I'm not going to take any thunder away from her. I'm going to let her talk all about it right now. So let me introduce you to Melanie Richards and let her take it away. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thanks so much, Christopher, for the opportunity to speak and connect with your amazing group. I'm the founder of Increase Your Visibility. And of course, Increase Your Visibility means that I'm really an introvert. So Increase Your Visibility was a seminar that I did in 2008 at our local Chamber of Commerce. And I wish I had that lovely little crystal ball that would have told me that I was going to eventually name my company Increase Your Visibility. I really appreciate the opportunity too, just to talk to you about being invisible and moving to be visible and then moving to be profitable. When I really looked at it in terms of how to help clients and how to help organizations that I was part of try to get their name out there, try to find ways as an entrepreneur myself to save energy, to save time, it really came down to shifting. And it was great having a chance to talk to Christopher about this as we were preparing for today. It really is about shifting. We have to shift just like we were, if invisible is the equivalent of being on a stationary bike, and if BVisible is the equivalent of signing up for a series of centuries or multi-day rides, like a five-day ride. And maybe being profitable means that you're able to ride downhill on a mountain bike. So I really think of the shifts in that sense. Another way too would be as entrepreneurs, whether we're doing it in person or online or virtually, or in front of somebody maybe who we've never met, we have three choices. Choice number one is Fantasy Island. We're looking for Mr. Rourke. We may want to be Mr. Rourke. We want to be Tattoo. We may want to fly that beautiful plane. We're looking to meet and connect with people who hopefully first not so blind date works out to be a really profitable, beneficial, long-lasting relationship. Personal relationship, profitable relationship, referral relationship. That's really what I think most of us are looking for. A lot of us, though, get stuck in kind of a limbo. We meet people, and in the old days, we'd give them a call to action. Or what I like to encourage people to do is something Rick taught me, which is really a call to connect. You're like on limbo or a treadmill. You're not really sure where the relationship's going. You sent out a proposal. You've done your best. You showed up. You provided the utmost value. And you're really waiting for somebody to kind of give you something back, but you're not sure that it's going to move. You're not sure at what point they're going to take the next step or if they're willing to. The last step, and I'll give a little hint as to what I'll be doing tonight, is Survivor Island. And yes, I will be watching the Survivor premiere tonight. I will be watching Boston Rob, and I will watch Sandra, and I will cheer them on. Survivor Island is kind of, we're not really sure we're going to hang out again. You're not sure that proposal is leading you to the dream client. You're not sure the introduction. You're not sure that the promise actually will ever be there. So today, I'd love to ultimately help lead us all to the point where we discover more ways to create our own fantasy island. I think one of the interesting things about it is, besides the shifting part, I found for me, being invisible or feeling invisible, I needed more equipment. I needed more tools. I'm a bowler. I needed more lanes with more angles. I needed new approaches. I also needed to figure out what my style was. And I think those things are some of the hardest things when you're trying to figure out where your point's at. The shifting also really required shattering mindsets. And in my case, shattering some myths. So I'd love to share them with you in case maybe somebody you know has the same myths, and you can share some feedback. Let me know. I was an employee for so long that I was invisible and it wasn't safe. What I'm grateful about is Rick knew me back in those days. I was hidden and under wraps. And when I made the move to be a part-time entrepreneur, almost no one knew that I was in business. I really stayed that way for about 2.5 years. So I really understand what it's like when you're not really sure what bio goes on the website, whether there's a phone number there, whether there's a contact, whether you're hiding behind a business or a brand. And that part, I think, is one of the most challenging parts, is really having to find out in ourselves whether we're comfortable to move out of that shell, when we want to make a step, whether we want to step outside of our comfort zones, or whether we want to actually see what it's like coming out from behind the desk, coming out from behind the computer. I'm a fan of live and virtual events. And I think in the process of doing those, it's really made me stretch my networking skills. I'm an introvert. In person at an event, I don't appear to be an introvert. People think I'm there to entertain, or I'm there to educate, or I'm there to help. I found one of the good tricks for me was volunteering. If I volunteer at an event, or if I host it, I'm there early. I can pick a great seat. I was claustrophobic at the time. I could pick a seat near the window. I could pick a seat near the door. I could carpool with an early bird. I could pick the brain of somebody else I knew who lived in the area or arrived early. And at really stressful events, I could carpool. Some of us don't want the events, but really, eventually, when we get to a chamber, we're going to end up at an event. I wasn't prepared for that first one. I had business cards, I had pens, I had, I had promotional products and materials at the time. And I thought, oh, great, I have stuff, I can just show up. What I didn't know was I was walking to an event with 165 people. I had no idea what the format was. I knew 2 people there before I left. I leave with a pile of cards. What do you do with them? I leave with opportunities for coffee, or somebody sending me stuff in the mail, or newsletters. What do I want to respond to? So I think that part really is a big part of the being invisible and trying to decide whether I'm a Bronx girl. We were talking about it before, my poor Mets, and good luck to the Yankees. But one of the things about being in the Bronx was Mom always taught me, be careful who you sit next to on the bus and the subway. I took that into the event. I took that caution in, that mindset. And part of getting past that was really learning to trust people. But the longer I'm doing this as a marketing coach and working with clients doing this, I had to really learn to trust myself. It took forever. And it didn't appear to, where we were filled with occasionally fears, anxieties, things we're uncomfortable about. Did I wear the right shoes? Is there something on your tie? And we really have to get past that discomfort. So I found for me, my tricks to get past it, whether at a live event, at a virtual event, I always have to have water. It gives me a chance to breathe. It gives me a chance to hydrate. It's something to hold on to. And the water really grounds me. And it helped me really move from invisible to kind of be visible. Another thing I do is I take a lot of notes. I can do that in the privacy of my office. I can do that at a conference, at a workshop. When you're sitting in a networking event and you're taking lots of notes, there's somebody next to you who wants to know what your paper says. There's somebody who wants to know what you miss. And it really is another thing, the pushing by. Do we want to be kids together to kind of play in the sandbox? I learned for me, I really had to create my own process. And part of it was getting out of my head, getting out of my comfort zones. And part of it is when I would work on puzzles as a kid, I would work on that center part of the puzzle in one area, and then I'd work on the framework on the other side. And then I'd put the two together. But people who don't know me, they don't know that. So I think part of the invisible to be visible is how much of our process are we comfortable sharing? When I was claustrophobic, I told friends, I would tell a friend who arrived early, I need lots of water. If they run out of beverages, if you're at the bar, I had a friend, she would always bring me water. And it was a gift. You really need people to kind of help you get out of that shell and get out of that comfort zone. So really, if that one part is helpful for somebody else, let me know. I think also the sharing what works for you and sharing with somebody what your safe zone is. It means a lot of different things in today's world. But really what I'm saying is I stayed invisible for so long that I wasn't comfortable sharing my strategies or my ideas with someone unless they were a client, unless we had built up a level of trust. And that's really hard to do, whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it online. How do you get past that next level? So one of the things I really had to learn about was being patient. And I'm really grateful for learning this from a talented coach in Canada. Her name is Sammy Gross, and her company is Crawford Coaching. And Sammy and I met in one of those really large groups, and she started blogging about depression and anxiety. And she blogged about it from the perspective, I'm in health and wellness, and I want to help other people get past this. So kind of here's my story. And she's a young, vibrant woman, and she shares this with a lot of transparency. But the thing she helped me remember was be stubborn about your goals and flexible about your methods. We really want to get there. We're trying to get to that top of the mountain. You're trying to get to yes or to get to no in a relationship. And she really reminded me, be more patient or be more flexible. Because sometimes I could look like the Sphinx, like I wasn't moving. And it's a reminder, we're not really sure how people see us. Another really challenging part about BVisible was I had to learn something that a gentleman, Jeffrey Davis, taught me. Jeffrey's company is Tracking Wonder. It's a really good, he's like a psychologist. He writes for, I think, Psychology Today. He helps people learn how to build a brand and build your brand with integrity. I met him as a result of a client mentioning it. And I was reading a book of his called Right to Lead in the process of trying to create content. What I loved was in the process of finding out about Jeffrey, I'm basically absorbing every piece of content this gentleman churns out in a week, including the newsletter on Sunday. I read it by Sunday afternoon. But the biggest thing he taught me to help, and I hope it'll help you, is something called act on your why. People always say we need to tell them our story, but they're really interested in why. And in a workshop with him, he asked someone the question why about 5 times. And he really was very patient at waiting for the answer. in a really good way, he made a person who was really nervous in the beginning totally comfortable. They then were able to share stories with people that they didn't know about products and about services. We fall in love with them and we think they're the next best thing since, I don't know, sliced bread or whatever Starbucks pumpkin latte is this month. But one of the really cool things was he reminded me, act on your why, know your why, and when you know it, share it. We don't know how much time we have, 3 seconds, 6 seconds, 9 seconds, a little bit more. I was telling a story earlier about somebody in the elevator. He spoke for maybe 45 seconds. Gentleman really made an impression on me. It's hard to do. How do we figure that out? And I think in that part, that brought me to another challenge, which was part of being BVisible and keep moving further and further out of being invisible. That was be present. My mind, my wheels can spin in overdrive. And they can spin in overdrive so much that it kind of looks like this. I'm creative. It spins, and I love this. Somebody put this up in a group that I'm in, and they called them idea spaghetti straps. And I really, really loved it because it reminded me, don't back up, that there were lights, that there were warning signals. And it reminded me, some ideas, they're proprietary. We're not sure we're ready to share them yet. Some ideas aren't perfect. We're not sure we're ready to collaborate with people yet. But what I really loved about it was the reminder to be present. Another one of the tricks that I found in the process of learning Jeffrey Davis's system was Sally Hogshead, How to Fascinate. And Sally has brand fascination. How to Fascinate's kind of the personal side. It taught me more about myself in her first book that I read, which was How the World Sees You. It taught me that I was a poker player, and I love World Series of Poker, but I'm not that player at the final table who's about to win 8 million. That person can be cool. They don't really have to share anything with anybody. But what it really taught me was I was really terrified of putting my cards on the table. I still wasn't sure who else was at the table. I wasn't sure who else was in the room and if it was safe. In the beginning, I was a promotional products distributor, and it was okay to not have all the answers about the products, but people really wanted every answer about the service and how we showed up. So one of the things that I learned there was, as I started building Increase Your Visibility, and as I went back to something that I had set aside, was I was becoming a marketing coach. As a marketing coach, I have no choice but to be transparent. I was on the phone with a prospective client today, and they're going to an event. And I know that they're also hosting an event in three weeks. And I love helping people with event marketing. And she has a team of people. I love working with entrepreneurs, but I love working with teams. And in the process, I was able to find out that she was going to a show that I had already thoroughly researched for a client 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I was able to share a nightmare story of how my client kind of put all their eggs in one basket, expecting that presentation to just bring them a lot of revenue. They really forgot that they had spent $3,000 on a show, $1,000 on hotels, a couple of hundred on meals for people to join them for multiple days of the show. They spent about $10,000 and they basically earned no revenue. And I was able to share that story with her because, unfortunately, she's got a friend who will give a presentation at that same show. So I just basically shared, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But normally I wouldn't share that. I didn't know that was one of the cards that I would never share to a prospect. And people need to know those little things about us so they know whether to continue or not. So it's a reminder for me, I had to really be sure how to let people know how to be clear about my process, and let others pick their choice of utensils. I don't like chewing my cabbage twice, but if it's cabbage, maybe you like coleslaw. Maybe you want yours with corned beef. Maybe you want yours pickled, and to just figure that part out. So how do we move deeper into invisible to be profitable? So many of you talented technical people would say, start at go. So I love playing Monopoly. That was not the place I wanted to start. I remember a game called Dictionary Dabble. And Dictionary Dabble is kind of a word game where you start at the pit of ignorance and your goal is to get to the summit of divine enlightenment. That's what it reminds me of when I'm trying to figure out how to be more visible. I don't know who I'm going to meet. So for me, I have to start in the middle and then leapfrog back. And some of you who start at the beginning, you always remind me to go back there. So I'm thankful for that. It's a clarity thing, whether it's Evernote, whether it's Trello to remind us to do something else, whether I have a client who his office is surrounded by whiteboards. I love to journal. Some people do. We're always taking notes. And really to start that part about how much do you want and how ready are you to share your business, your services with someone who you just met and who you're hopefully waiting for to trust you. It's kind of like a big leap. And really we have to decide how much we want to share with those people that we just met. And how much would you share with someone you just met who's about to become a client? I learned and was reminded of that today. This is hopefully a strategic alliance, a referral partner, and hopefully a client. She does lots of events. She says she knows lots of events hosts. I'm looking to meet them. And I would have asked her, who do you know who you can introduce me to? And I loved it. I had somebody who volunteered that. I'm ready to give you everything that I have because hopefully we're going to become a referral partner. I think another way too to be visible is something I call the 6 C's. It all is combined with communication. So we've got to think about it, conceive it. We got to collaborate it, figure out who we want to work with. We have to create it or build it, kind of like that idea spaghetti. We have to connect and we have to convert. And when I looked at these C's, I had to ask myself, which one was the most spooky? What C is the most spooky for you? Mine was communicate. And it's interesting that I'm a marketing coach. I really wasn't sure about which messages to share where or when. And now I'll admit it, I really trust my instincts because of my comfort zones. I know my why. I want to work with entrepreneurs and teams who really care about making the world a better place. It may sound sappy to anybody else. I don't care what industry they're in, as long as it's not human trafficking or drug industry. Some of our top 5 of the most lucrative, I'd love to continue to stay away from. I'm on a domestic violence board. But I think that figuring out where your why intersects with what you're comfortable with is kind of the start. And the part about our stories, that's really, really challenging because I wasn't comfortable in the beginning sharing anything that wasn't business related. I didn't know I needed to get past that or to really show who Mel was. So my jokes are, what did I learn? I don't hand out business cards at events unless I'm hosting them. People would say that's a no-no. I don't like wearing badges at events. So you went to the chamber. I remember those adhesive badges. They gave us a Sharpie at a great event. You'd have a pre-printed badge, had your name on it, it had your company. First time I saw that, I kept the badge and put it in my eyeglass container. I had never, ever seen my company name typed by somebody else. Like, who am I? It really gave me a sense of importance. I kept the first one, but after that, I wouldn't fill any out. And first, I had friends who said, you're not wearing the badges. Unless it was my event or a client's event, I did not wear that badge. If the badge was required at a trade show, I would put it on because I needed a scan and I wanted to get good things. But I stopped handing out cards because in my first 3 to 4 months as a startup, I went through 1,000 business cards and my cards weren't inexpensive. Probably almost 15 years ago, my cards were about $1/4 each. So I went through $250 of cards and I said, I can't afford this as a startup. But for others, handing out that card is the best way to begin. For me, I start conversations and people start them with me because they didn't get my card. So I love that. So let's talk more about BVisible. This is my favorite badge. I want to thank Rick because he has one. I think I need to reverse this for some. And this is my favorite badge now. If I had any idea how this badge would make it easy for an introvert to open doors. And really, it was a badge that we wore at a retreat I did. And our next retreat will be in 2020. I hope you can join us. But when we really talk about being visible means different things to each of us. It means different things personally, means different things privately, means different things when you're at a business event, means something different when you're with your family. You have to define it for yourself. I'd almost draw a grid of pros and cons, or I love, I want to avoid, and then I would measure it. These are some things that are like me. They're easy to do, maybe. These are some things that are not like me. They're uncomfortable. And then I'd push those into your, I need help, or a mentor, or a coach, or to hire somebody to help me get past that hurdle. A lot of coaches really try and help me loosen up. It took them a long time. Finally, Joe Hoffman with a scotch in hand and a cigarette. And I thank him because he's probably smiling from a cloud today after a couple of rounds of golf. He reminded me that I needed to really pick what events I went to. Was I going to a chamber event? Was I going to a conference? What made it worth it for me to bust out of my comfort zone? When he said that, I started really looking at it. I started entering ticket drawings for really expensive events, and I was lucky. I won tickets to like a chamber gala. It was fantastic, $350. That first gala, getting dressed up, girl from the Bronx who hates heels and would rather Crocs and sneakers. And I invited one of my coaches, and it was a good way to say thank you. And we had an interesting night. It was so easy for her because she had been born and raised in that community. It wasn't for me. I was from a different area. There were a lot of people that I didn't know, didn't recognize. The people who I might see at a chamber meeting, they're in a tux. They have a drink in their hand. It really changes the whole engagement, whether the event is at a golf course, at a venue, in a bar. It really pushes you and pushes your comfort zone. And it really pushed mine. If you're doing something like that too now, when you can, check in. If you're at a conference, use the find nearby on LinkedIn if you're looking to meet a bunch of people. And especially if you're at a conference or an event with a lot of people in your target market. You'll have to sort through them later because some will be valuable, some you'll need to be really selective about. Others you'll want to contact and kind of take your relationship to the next level quickly. But it takes time. I think another thing too at events, I learned I had to have something in my pocket. I had networking pants. I had a magnet from my Nana on the refrigerator and I'd put it in my pocket. I learned business cards in one pocket, something else to ground me in another. Just hopefully it'll help. Another weird thing is I had to build a bio. I was like, what in the world? What Christopher and I talked about this earlier, and I said, I was so grateful he said a brief bio. What do you want to say about yourself? What if it ends up in a program at a chamber? What if somebody puts it on the internet? What is it that you wanted to say? One of my strategic alliances learned the hard way. Our bios on an application for a leadership orange program, that's the one locally. It was kind of sponsored and built out of one of our local chambers. We went through this program, but we had no idea that the bio we wrote was going to be put up so everyone could see it in the program. Some people wrote some stuff we really don't want to see. But if you can, think of how you can use that, because it'll really help you when you're at a chamber, when you have an opportunity to present at a workshop, or it'll give you maybe a core message that maybe you want to use when you're introducing someone. Another thing too, when you do get to the chamber, I ended up being really lucky getting adopted by this wonderful woman who told me join the Small Business Committee. She said 80% of the members were at the Small Business Committee. You'll meet the most amount of people that you can in the quickest format by attending these events. So I went to every small business event, probably for about the first 4 months. I met a lot of people. I had to really sort through them and figure out who Mel was and what Mel wanted to say, and if Mel wanted to come out and play with more people there. And it really taught me a lot. Back to the bus and the subway and who you want to sit next to. It taught me a lot about nerves, taught me more about courage. Somebody, wonderful mentor, called me fearless because he never saw the young woman who needed to touch the magnet in her pocket to kind of have a brass set for the day, so to speak. He never saw the deep breaths or the nerves or the water. And I think that part was interesting. I'm grateful for really good family and friends and people carpooling to kind of bolster us up. If you can also, besides picking that committee, think of a committee where there's somebody on it who could be a good mentor, somebody who might be a potential coach, somebody with a skill set that you'd like to acquire or emulate or just work on. And one of the things too is I found in the beginning, small business was exactly what I was. It really resonated with who I was. And it really helps me build strategic alliances, probably in record time at the chamber. So really look at the committees. And if you're not really sure, try and ask somebody that you trust, whether it's, a membership director, whether it's somebody else in your industry who doesn't give you the creeps or make you feel like you're on Survivor Island, and kind of get someone to navigate that. And then, like I was saying before, build a hot list. I take probably 15 to 20 minutes to research event lists that I can find online. If I can find it on Facebook, if you can find it on LinkedIn. Locally, we had a LinkedIn local event. There's a LinkedIn global event that'll be massive shortly in New Jersey. I would love to go. I'm not sure it's the right thing for me, but I'm going to check. I know like 10 people who are going. And the good news is there probably will be about 300 to 400 people who you don't know. So really, if you can, try and volunteer at the chamber. That's what I learned. Volunteering at the chamber got me a great boost because I was able to work. The woman who was the director of chamber events, she knew me from volunteering on the committees, and she put us in the perfect booth location. And I'm thankful because later that helped me become a trade show consultant. It led into the event marketing. So you never know where the volunteering will lead you. And if you're not sure about an expo, attend, partner with somebody, share a booth, sponsor an event that your local chamber is doing that really seems like it'll be a good fit for you and your business. And locally, they have a lot of the taste ofs. It's the fall. So there are chambers are sponsoring outdoor events where you get a taste of from local restaurants. And like I said before, check into the gala, even if you're not a gala person. The other part of the chamber is occasionally, after a while, you really can be looked at as an influencer. I was really uncomfortable when it happened to me. I didn't realize it. And one day I got an award from a chamber, and that was the game changer. It was for volunteering. Fortunately, it was related to my act on my why a little bit. And I had always loved helping nonprofits. It's really how I became an entrepreneur. So for me, it became a natural fit. But for you, what's your zone of genius? What's that area, that thing, or what are a couple of things that you want to be known for? And with me, it was something I was hesitant to claim. In the beginning, I had said to somebody at a networking event, I love volunteering. And 3 people in the corner kind of snorted. It was my first time at an event. I was so uncomfortable. But I took a big sip of water, and then the Bronx girl got a little ticked. I actually went over to go say hi. I was wondering what was so funny. And I tried my best not to ask it in a snippy way. And one of the people who left, I've still in contact with. I will never refer them. But I learned a lot that day about how we respond when somebody's kind of questioning a little bit who you are. It can make us defensive. I wasn't really defensive that day, but I still remember the story enough to share it. So while we're making this about you, I found a really cool link. I'll drop it in the group later. It's a woman by the name of Danielle Clark Fitzpatrick. She wrote an article on LinkedIn about how to work with other influencers. And it reminded us, when we're approaching an influencer, or if we are one, we want to always have a really clear message. When you're approaching other influencers, or people are asking to work with you, you want to make sure that it's kind of about you. It has to be personal. If people don't get that, the with them, the what's in it for me, they may not go farther. But the last part of it, and something in her article, we talked a little bit about it before, was your differentiation. What is it about you that separates you? Whether you're hesitant to claim it or not, it's really important to kind of figure that out. I had no idea when I went to the chamber what I wanted to do. I just wanted to meet clients. At that time, I was naive enough to think I could just help any business. Today, I'll remind myself, it's about working with people who care about helping others. I'd love to share with you my fun key to invisible, to be visible, to be profitable, that Rick created for me, talented Rick of Network Fusion. And one of the hardest parts we talked about for a while, we spent a while on it. And we spent a while on it because BVisible is the hardest part. Because you have to shift from invisible to get there. And if you already are visible, but maybe we reached a point recently, and I was laughing, I just wanted to have a quiet dinner. It took me a while. We had to figure out a restaurant that no one I knew owned, no business owner, and we found something off the beaten path. You really have to choose whether you want to be visible or not. And it's really the hardest part. So one of the other things that I really would say is probably the hardest part behind that is being consistent. And that part, I love it when we practice stuff. So besides being consistent, being selective is really another big part. You really want to think of the consistency, yet think of where you want to show up and when you want to show up. And the why part will really come in there a little bit later. The be consistent part and the be selective, they really are so closely mixed together. But these three pieces, if you spend a lot of time on here, and if you're doing this with a team, it's really a good thing to do, because each person can figure out something else that they want to select as kind of their area of focus or their area of genius. Another big part is be focused. And this can vary for a lot of people. I was presenting to a group of bankers, basically retail and kind of corporate bankers. And the owner, their manager was in there, and he talked about how, for him, that the company, they needed to really shift their focus from what they wanted to what he wanted. It was a really challenging team building meeting, but it was kind of fun. The other part, and I'm grateful again to Christopher for always testing stuff, is really to be valuable. It's kind of the zone of genius part. And how are we showing up as kind of a problem solver to really help somebody kind of take that next level? We really think that our products and services are the next best thing, and you need to just try these, have these, everything. But if we don't add the value, we're not making or taking the next steps.
Melanie, your screen's not showing right now.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Am I back?
No screen share yet.
Oh, that's so funny. Thank you so much. My lovely computer has reminded me that I'm human. So which one did I miss, Christopher? Go back.
We only saw the very first one, BVisible.
Oh, how wonderful. After the whole beautiful test. So I will try this again.
Just pick up where you left off and throw all of them into place.
Okay, I'll put them all into place. Thank you for that. Can you see that one? Okay, cool.
Yes, we can see it.
Thanks. So Rick set this up. So it's a beautiful piece and it's a beautiful work of art. It's for the kid who used to put together the puzzles, and really the Chambers and Leadership Orange, they showed me that I had a bag of puzzle pieces. I just wasn't sure which one to use when. So now as I'm helping clients and entrepreneurs move from invisible to be visible to be profitable, this key really reminds me we're always trying to look for keys to open up new vault doors. We're trying to, make ourselves be known. We're trying to save what I call ROE, really trying to save your return on energy. And in the beginning, I spent a lot of time, like many people, working on the ROI part, looking for the return on investment. Now I love helping people work on ways to save their return on energies and ways to increase their return on engagement. And really doing that so we can have something I call ROO, return on opportunities and return on objectives. And really, when I looked at this key, and I really, really appreciated it, this key really reminded me to really take a look at whether it was a client, an individual, an organization, how could we help each other? And the conversation with the founder of the bank and his retail managers and VPs or branch managers just reminded us we're all looking at this from so many different angles, and we're all caught up on our little piece of the pie. But I really appreciated it because Rick helped me really understand why that key meant a lot to me too. So I'd really love to thank you for your time, for your energy, for a great chance to connect with you this afternoon or evening or morning, whatever time it is when you're watching a replay. And I hope somewhere that these are some steps that you can use to help you really make yourself whoever it is you're trying to reach, and to really become moving from invisible to be visible to be profitable. And if you have a chance, I'd love for you to connect with me online. I'm actually launching this program in my own group, which is Illuminations Group on Facebook. But I invite and welcome you to connect with me on Facebook or on LinkedIn.
Mel, do you want to put your that in the chat somehow so people can see it there? And
yes,
also,
I will.
while you're doing that, if you would put the key back up, you've done such a fantastic job here. You could put that key back up for me, if you don't mind.
I will find it.
I'd like to pick on it a little bit myself, based on the things that we directly talk about in our local chamber influencers. Can you find it there?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, it really is right in line with so many things that we talk about in our other trainings, especially after you get past Be Visible, and you're talking about be consistent, which is consistent as far as what you do in your focus within the Chamber of Commerce. Be focused, what you want to accomplish within the group. Be valuable. Now, here's what we always talk about. Do you bring value? If you bring value, then you're going to be noticed. And if you bring value, then you're also going to be noticed, especially by those that have the businesses that need your service. So be valuable, become noticed there. That makes you become or be profitable, as Melanie likes to say. So pardon me for using your key and saying some words myself, Melanie, but it just fits so well with some of the things that we do on a weekly basis in the influencer group. And does anyone have any questions for Melanie? I'm sure that she is more than willing to take you on.
Well, I'd like to just jump in and say you did an absolutely marvelous job today. The amount of detailed and information that you explored and shared with us today is it's just like so much. I mean, at this point, to ask a particular question is like you're absorbing everything that you said today, and it's like, wow, where do I begin to pick 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 different areas that you talked about, from coming out of your shell to becoming visible to focusing and being consistent to be valuable and to be profitable. Excellent transition from one to the other. Thank you so much. Did a great job.
Okay. I had a quick question, Christopher.
Go right ahead, sir.
Does Melanie have any particular books that she feels like have been the most beneficial to help her in who she is today?
I have 3. So the first one is Sally Hogshead, How the World Sees You, because I didn't know how others saw me. And when I didn't read the book from cover to cover, but it was about me personally and how I was seen by other professionals or other teams. And the cool part was when she had a book called Fascination, which is about your brand and how your brand can fascinate other people. Those 2 books, that first book, I joined her coaching program. It's really what turned me into a marketing coach and helped me realize how to move forward. Jeffrey Davis's Right to Lead was a workbook that it's really thin. It's like 10 or 15 pages, and he's in the Hudson Valley. And it was about just taking a step to create content. I was afraid to let my voice out. It helped me find my authentic voice. The third book that I found was interesting, and it was recommended to me by somebody who felt that I wasn't salesy enough and that I wasn't specific enough. And it was written by Joseph Sugarman. It's called Triggers. Triggers is, he invented blue blockers years ago. There's some stories in there from advertising trench days to storefronts to working with clients. And in the back, there was a worksheet. Give me a workbook and I think I'm there. So
Melanie,
those are 3 books.
Melanie, go ahead and take the key down so we can actually see you when you talk.
Sure.
There you go. So,
And I've got another question too. What would you say is I know what I think it is, but what would you say is the #1 challenge that every entrepreneur has if they would like to be able to move into that dream of owning their own business as opposed to just being having that job where they're just over broke?
We have to get out of our own heads. I think that, some people like calling it self-limiting beliefs. I think like in the beginning, I was really comfortable today sharing, we each have a myth, and that myth can grow into a mountain, and that mountain creates walls or blockades, and we don't move past them. I think somewhere in there, there's that risk part. I didn't understand the risk part in the beginning. And that, I think, is the big thing. If you're afraid of it, you need to find a way to try it, even if it's part-time, to kind of, just to find a bridge. For me, actually, I reached out to Rick while I was a full-timer. I didn't know how to make the jump. And he was very, very patient. And I had tons of questions. We all need help. SCORE is not always the answer, and no offense to the chambers and SCORE. I know some SCORE counselors who have told people with great ideas that they should give up on their dreams. And one of them started a franchise recently. A SCORE counselor told them they didn't think it was a marketable idea. The franchise people at the show loved it. And they now own a franchise.
Showing you never know where your true spark is going to come from in the process. Right. Melanie, thank you so very, very much for this insightful and actionable bit of information that you shared today. I think it was absolutely tremendously well done. And I know it's going to be received in replay extremely well. In the future, I hope you'll tag in and post in our groups when you're having an event. And we'd be happy to post it up in our group so that people can also follow you at times when you're doing something of note out on your own business. And so we'll look forward to seeing some of that as we go. So at this point, since we're running right at an hour, and oh, by the way, I have to mention that Melanie was mentioning our very own Rick Shearer, that's right here with us right now. Of course, a major part of our organization, our group. Rick is the one that she is referring to as her mentor along the way, and the talent behind much of what she enjoys doing. And so, Rick, congratulations. Obviously, you picked the right person, because I don't know if you've done it or not, but she is really rocking and rolling right now. Good job, my man. Good job.
Oh, you're welcome. But, you can only lead a horse to water. And if that horse don't want to drink, you're not going to make it drink. The material that Mel comes from and her entire makeup lend itself to whatever information I could help her with. She not only listened, absorbed, but acted on it. So I don't want to take the credit that belongs to her. But well, thank you, Mel.
I adore you.
Aha! We've got a love fest going here. We better cut it off live right now.
Everyone needs a mastermind partner, and we need one who's more creative than us, and someone who's ahead of us and with us and behind us. Otherwise, as Scott was saying, that's really the biggest thing. We need incredible support, or it doesn't happen.
And otherwise, it's a very lonesome place to be, especially in our market, when we're mostly home-based, and we tend not to get out, stay behind our computers, and that's the reason I always talk about the chamber. Get out, be active with the chamber, mingle with people. That's how you're going to make money, not sitting behind your computer. All right, everybody, have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Oh, and one other reminder, this Saturday at, 1 o'clock, no, 10 o'clock, excuse me, 10 a.m., our podcast. And this week we're having Gio Santiago, and he's got a lot to say. He's a good friend of mine, and he has a tremendous amount that he can share with you on Saturday. All right, talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Thank
Great.
you. Everybody take care. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.